Call the special regular meeting of council to order on April the 17th, 2023 at 6:01 p.m. On the agenda, first off, I would like to recognize that we're in Treaty 5 land, traditional land of the Chisswaysick Cree Nation and homeland to the Métis, and that we're all treaty people. I have also had regrets from Councillor Colbert for this evening. Thank you. Next, we'll go to resolutions. Resolution 2.1 is a resolution to approve the tabulation of prices for the 2023 local street renewal program tender number 1027-2023. Resolution 2023-038, moved by Councillor Fitzpatrick, seconded by Councillor Landmark. Be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Director of Development and Technical Services and award the 2023 local street renewal program to Maple Leaf Construction for their tendered price of $5,879,715 plus applicable taxes as per tender file number 1027-2023. Administration.
Yes, good evening. The tender package for the road renewal for 2023 was released on March the 10th and closed on March 28th. We had 2 bids submitted. Both bidders met all of our criteria for bid as per the memo that is attached. The 2 prices that were provided were Maple Leaf Construction at $5,879,715 and Nelson River Construction at $8,749,975. On the second page of the memo, you've seen we've done a bit of a check as to where we are with regards to our funding. This year's estimated work by the engineer came in at $5.4 million, $5,447,000. We're only slightly above that, about 450-ish above what the engineering estimate is. So we're actually close to what it's been. If you recall, in other projects, it's been 2, 3, 4 million higher with some of the water projects. So this road renewal project will add an additional about 2.4 kilometers, 2.6 kilometers to our existing plan. So the memo says we're going to be about 6.08 kilometers total of the 2022 work and the 2023 work, and that's at a total of 20 kilometers that we had anticipated under ISEC. So our recommendation is that we award this contract to Maple Leaf for the provided price of $5,879,715. The cost sharing matrix, because this is an ISEC project, the city of Thompson's portion of that will be $980,000, which represents 16.67%, which is our contribution for the road renewal.
Thank you. Are you at liberty to divulge the areas that we're going to be working in as per this tender?
Yeah, no problem. The areas covered under this tender include Thompson Drive from the western corner just out here to the corner of Lynx. If you recall, we did the south side lane 3 years ago, ish. So we'll do the north side lane for the first little bit in front of to the corner by the courts, by the library there, and then it'll be both the north and south lanes clear through to Lynx. Then it'll be Juniper from Oak to Selkirk. Spruce, which is the little road comes off Juniper by the hospital that goes to Mystery Lake Road. Portion of Deerwood, the remaining portion of Deerwood comes under the water project. And I think that's it for this year's work. The other work will be added to the last year's work will be done this year as well.
Thank you. Anything else from any administration? Next, I'm going to go to Councillor Fitzpatrick as the mover.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question now. Are we not going to be doing all of Deerwood this year?
So Deerwood is broken up. Part of it's under the road renewal project, and the other part of it's under the water renewal project. So the water renewal guys,
But,
they've subbed it to Maple Leaf as well, so Maple Leaf is doing
so
that work.
Deerwood will be completed.
Deerwood will be done.
Okay,
One portion under road, one portion under water.
that's my only concern. Thank you.
Councillor Tom?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to know, for this amount of money, $5.8 million, how do you work out to like, how much a kilometer, cost? Do you have the number?
I don't have that off the top, I'd have to go back, we could do a per meter cost.
Yeah.
I did talk with the engineering group prior to the meeting tonight, just to see, because I've only been here for a couple of years now.
Right.
They've been doing this for a while now.
Mhm.
The pricing that they've seen is very good from what we've passed, we pulled a couple of line items, mainline paving is one of them. The pricing, is better than what we've typically seen in the past. I believe it was Councillor Wong that raised it in the previous one. We did see a large reduction in their low and demo because they're gonna be here already from last year's project. So if you look at their low and demo cost compared to the engineering estimate for Maple Leaf, it's about half or less than half of what the engineering estimate was. And the reason is they're gonna be up here with their crew already doing last year's work and doing the water work. So that's why. We'll most likely see similar going forward because Maple Leaf will be most likely subbing to the water project in successive years.
I'd like to know the comparison between paving the city and paving the highway and the difference. Like, highway maybe, it just keep going,
Yeah,
but paving the city maybe a different,
it's a different construction, it's a different paving method. It's also a little different because we've got all the conduits curbing, like there's curbing costs in there, that's not part of it. Driveway approaches. I can see what I can be done, but I'm not exactly sure it's gonna be an apples to apples comparison.
exactly, thank you.
Okay, that's all, Councillor Lombard?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is great news, it came in close. With the $432,000 shortfall from our budget and from the ISEP proposal that we put forward for this year. I realize that we're paying 16.67%, and that's great, but with the 432,000.
Yeah.
That's not in there. Are we covering that separately, or is that something that we might have to shorten our scope later on?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Similar to what happens with water, right? We're kind of continuing on, and at some point we'll have to look as to whether or not we do a scope reduction. Or, remember, there is the alternative, that was brought up probably 6 weeks ago, where, this one time they're allowing, gas tax money to be used as a top up for, projects that exceed their ISEC. We don't have to make a decision on that today. That is something that can be done in the future. So right now, Councillor, we're within our $40 million that we've got there. And at some point, we'll either have to make a decision that we'll either have to reduce scope or look at other options. And to be frank, the engineering company's already doing that. They are trying to look at opportunities to reduce costs. Maybe it's areas where we don't redo all the curbs. Curbs are in decent condition. We can get a little bit more time out of the curbs. So perhaps we could look at reducing curbs out of some of our areas. Or other ways of bringing costs back down, because they know that we're at, any dollar over 40 million is completely 100% got to be covered by the city, not 16.67%.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. I've got another one. If you don't mind. The work that we're working on for the roads here are our water and sewer lines up to snuff under there. I know that we were really trying to make sure that we were doing that.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that we're on.
It's on the radar. I can't say 100%, but it is something we're trying to do. We do have the ability, there's been an agreement made that we can camera the lines under that road, and it would be an eligible cost for ISEC. So again, we can charge those costs to ISEC. What it means though is we're taking to do that work and perhaps having to reduce at the end of the day. So to date, we haven't done it, but it's something we can look to do.
I just think that it would be a good idea. I know there's a company in town for sure that can do those camera.
And they will be a company up this summer because it's part of the requirements under the water and sewer. Water and wastewater renewal is that they have to camera lines.
And thank you very much. It's pretty close to the. Yes, $432,000 is over, but with the inflation rates that we've seen in any of our other projects recently, and we've seen for other cities, this is pretty awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Moore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like this summary paper, so I hope, I didn't see the last year when the tender going up. Is it, this year's a special, and you can see the summary paper, like how they break it down all the.
We have that for last year, we could provide it for last year.
But last year when we saw it, we didn't have that attached. I didn't.
I don't believe that they did it
Very
last
good, I
year.
like that.
Yeah.
So give me a different perspective and understand more, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question, did you know these two companies, the same company?
Sorry?
Maple and Nelson, the same company? It's just mother and son company.
Okay,
Okay, just to give you a perspective. So anyway, did you have a matrix of a comparison from last year, the $6.7 million contract compared to 5.8 this year? The square, the what you call the square cubic meter. Did you break it down?
we have, the comparative from this year's results to last year's results, that hasn't been done.
I think it's good to know
We
that
can look
because
into that.
the price is 6.7 of the cubic meter that doing the construction compared to this year. The summary tell you all the cubic meter.
Yeah.
What they do, how much per unit price.
Yeah.
So it is for us due diligence to understand whether this price is good or bad. And if it's good, why last year is so much different, right? And become a square mileage altogether when you do the math.
Yeah.
Number, I like number because it would never mislead you by the number. So I like to see that, the comparison, because I don't have the last year cubic meter to compare, so I can't do anything about that. But what I see today, it trigger me to think about, we should look into that as well, whether the price is close or outrageous,
Okay.
right?
I can get that comparison.
And another question I'd like to find out, because of all this inflation, last year we had to top up $2 million. This year we have to top up $400,000. So moving forward, the $40 million, is that going to be run out pretty quick? So that is the thing, we need to think about it. Whether it's a good news story or not, the reality is the money is only $40 million. Even the government right now allow us to touch our saving. According to some people, it's a good news story. To me, no, you just allow me to touch my saving to top up the difference, which is I can use those savings to do something else. When we do more construction, but now I narrow down my construction. So I think really, in my perspective, I'm more interested and more worried about how soon this money will run out, and furthermore, and whatever remaining, how much more can we do? So those things I think is a serious question that we should discuss about it and moving forward, right? So anyhow, I think it is what it is. I believe that we need to move forward because we don't have anything last year. So this year we gotta do something. But moving forward, that is a very serious discussion we need to have. Otherwise, the money gonna run out the way I look at it. And hopefully you guys can come up some sort of brainstorm and discussion and give us the best advice because you guys are the expert. You guys are doing that daily. I'm just here to look at the number and based on the number, I give my 2 cents. All right, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
That forecasted projection is something that the consultants are working on right now. So taking the numbers that we've got, the averages of the numbers that we've got, adding some inflation and try to see how far can we get with what we've got with that 40 million.
Thank you.
And I think actually, even when you're asking for comparisons, for the mileage or the kilometers on it, you gotta take into consideration whether it's just a mill and fill whether you go to that next stage when you're taking off a bit more, or if it's a complete dig, so that could change, you know. Each area could be a totally different thing, so that definitely would have a play in it.
And in addition, it's what type of curb are we putting in, or is there sidewalk involved or sidewalk not involved?
Yeah.
So there's all that adds into that square meter cost. There are a few lines that we can look at and kind of do the comparison. Mainline paving is one, there are others that we can kind of do comparison.
Thank you. Anthony, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, the director addressed most of what I wanted to say. The only other one is, I believe, the technicians typically do a year-by-year comparison on a spreadsheet. So what Councillor Wong's asking for is probably readily available. It just isn't here tonight, but that's something our technicians do every year, as they compare what are the sidewalk costs last year versus this year, what is a curb cost. So that's normally spreadsheeted. They take care of that administratively. That's something we can share to council.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Councillor Oberdorfer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for administration. So, my question is if this is a fixed price contract, and the reason I ask that question is just the difference in the two quotes or the two bids that we got essentially are drastically different. And when we look at the mobilization costs, it's only, I mean, it's less than 200,000, the difference for the mobilization. So that's not making up a significant amount of that difference. So I guess my only concern is, question, I guess, is if there is any concern regarding the bid that they're providing essentially, and whether we're concerned that there could be price increases or something that could come up because they're not properly, you know, pricing for concrete or what have you. Because when you look at the comparison, it is drastically different. I mean, I didn't know that the companies were both owned by the same, that they were the same company. So I mean, that could just be that could be the reason, but anyway, if you have any comments.
So the pricing table that they have provided forms part of the contract, so that will be the set firm price on that item. So unless we alter quantity or something happens, the pricing would be.
Unless we put forward a change order.
Correct, there'll be a
or
CCO's, exactly.
an issue that comes,
That's right.
arises, but otherwise, like the square footage price that they're providing for concrete essentially will be the price.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Anthony?
Yeah, and over the last several years, these are the only two companies that have bid. And if you were to go back through all net, you'll see that every year, Maple Leaf typically comes in at least $1 million or more under their competitor. So it's,
Any other comments? Councillor? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All for adjournment? Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Deputy Mayor Valentino, all in favor? Carried. Very. Committee of the whole will be at 7 p.m.